I received your letter dated 12th December, and I thank you for reaching out to me. I understand that you're interested in hearing my story, but with all due respect, that's where you and I disagree. I do not feel in any way that this is my story. I don't think I'm entitled to be heard in any manner. My actions devastated a family and shocked the community. There is a possibility I may be called to testify, and I don't want to jeopardise this case in any way. Welcome to Extraordinary Stories podcast. Hey, how are you? Are you well? Are you good? I am. I'm well, but I'm on day 4 of being snowed into my house. Cabin fever is setting in, I can assure you. It is day 4 and the snow here is just ridiculous. So here I am, snowed in. Okay, so, and I know that all across the UK and other parts of Europe, there are lots of people in the same position. Okay, shout outs. Victoria Wilson, thank you for your support. Thank you so much. Tracy Paca in Minnesota. Hello, Tracy. I hear you're a fan of the podcast and that you tell people about it. Thanks for listening. I really hope that you're well. And Ros Corrigan, hello. How are you? Thanks for the response to the new midweek episode, the short stories. This first week, the Christian the Lion story seemed to really touch people. I put the video on the Facebook group of the reunion between Christian the Lion and his owners, and it made quite a lot of people cry. So if you haven't seen it, you can go and find it on YouTube, but you can go and find it on the group. Okay, I'll not ramble on for too long. Let's get to the story, but before we do, I'm going to say this. This story has so many twists and turns. It's almost as if I told you this story was fictional, you would utterly believe it. But it's not, sadly, fictional. At points it's really, really dark. It's really upsetting at points. It goes into an area that I haven't yet tackled on the podcast. I've tackled things sort of in the same world, but not quite as, what's the word I'm looking for? Brutal as this. Okay, get yourself ready for the story of Apartment 5. Okay, let's go. The story starts in August last year, August 2017. Savanna Greywind is a young woman who is both beautiful and generous. She's 22 years old at the time of the story. She's close with her family, with whom she lives. Savanna lives with her mum, her dad, and her younger brother in an apartment block. Now, where do they live? Well, in Fargo. Yes, actual Fargo. Now, I have to admit my own stupidity here. I thought Fargo was made up. I thought it was a place that had been created for the TV show and for the film that came out years ago. I've never seen either the film or the TV programme, but when I heard people talk about it, I just assumed it was a fictional place. But no, Fargo is actually real. and that's where Savanna and her family live. Where is Fargo? Well, it's in North Dakota in the USA. So as I've said, Savanna's 22, lives with her family, and there's one other thing that you need to know about this young lady at this moment. She is pregnant. At the time of her story, she is 8 months into her pregnancy. Who else do we need to know about? Well, there's Savanna's boyfriend, and she's been dating him for nearly 7 years. He is the father of her unborn child, and his name is Ashton. So just to give you a picture as it stands before the day, the very important day that I need to take you to, Savanna is working as a nursing assistant, a job that she both is really good at and enjoys. Now, although her and her boyfriend don't live together currently, they've paid a deposit to secure an apartment for after the birth of their child. So I think here Savanna's family thought, well, it might be best that she stays with them during her pregnancy, and then once she's had the baby, she can move out. Her, Ashton, and their new baby, they can move into an apartment and they can start to raise the child and begin family life. The apartment block she was looking at was actually not that far from her parents' house. It's a very similar style of property. It's like big white apartment blocks with, I would reckon, about 20 different apartments in them, and there's just like an area where, you know, they're just filled with lots of these different apartment blocks. Now, as I'd said earlier on, she was a really generous girl, Savanna. She was popular. People always said she was kind as a nursing assistant. People who worked with her always said she was so caring for any patients, and she'd always help out others who needed it. And my God, we need more of those in the world. So let me take you to Saturday, the 19th of August 2017. An upstairs neighbour of the Greywinds asks the family for a favour. She's making a dress for herself. Now, just to finish it off, she needs a model to just put the dress on so that she can make the final touches. So she asks if Savanna will come up and help her. And of course, Savanna says, yeah, no problem. The neighbour offers her $20 for her time and her assistance. So on this Saturday afternoon, the heavily pregnant Savanna goes up to the neighbour's house and the dress sewing begins. The upstairs neighbour lived in apartment number 5. Okay, the neighbours, who were they? Well, they were 38-year-old Brooke Crew and her boyfriend, William Hain. Brooke and William had lived for a few years up in apartment 5. The Greywinds knew them in passing, but they didn't know them terribly well. They knew them kind of just enough to say hello. Now on this day, Savanna had a couple of other things to do, as well as help her neighbour, and one of them included driving her younger brother to work in the afternoon. He was due to start work at, I think, 3 o'clock. So half an hour before his time to start work, when his big sister should have been driving him to work, comes, and Savanna hasn't come back down from the flat. So now each member of the family is about to have a go at going up and getting Savanna, and it goes like this. First, a younger brother goes up. He knocks on the door and he gets no answer. He comes back down. Savanna's father goes up. He gets an answer, and it's William. He says, oh, Brooke and Savanna, they're still working on the dress. They're almost finished. She'll be down really soon. So really soon comes and goes. Time passes. Savanna doesn't come back downstairs, and her mum thinks, right, I've had enough of this. I'll go up and get her. So she goes up, she knocks on the door, she asks if Savanna can come home because her brother needs to get to work, and the woman, Brooke, says, oh, Savanna isn't here. She left. She helped me finish the dress and she left. And her mum thinks, odd. Where would she have gone? Savanna had no money on her. She knew she was meant to be taking her brother to work. Savanna was a very reliable young woman, so this is not making much sense. So the first thing that her mum does is she tries calling Savanna's phone. The phone rings, but it doesn't get picked up. Her mother tries again, same thing. It's ringing, but still no answer. Now a real sense of panic starts to rise in her. She, her husband, and Savanna's younger brother, they all start to worry. I mean, if anyone goes missing, if anyone's unreachable, of course it's immediate panic. But an 8-month pregnant woman goes missing, then double that panic. So her parents call Ashton, her boyfriend, asking, has he seen her? Is she with him? She's not. He says they had been texting earlier on in the day, but the text had stopped. He just assumed that she was busy when the text stopped, and he wasn't too worried. But he's worried now. So they don't wait too long. They call the police. Police arrive. They hear that Savanna was fine up until the time when she went upstairs to help with the dress and never came back. And the family say, can you please go upstairs and check apartment number 5? So the police do this. They go up, they knock on the door, and both Brooke and William are there. And the police explain that a young girl who lives in the apartment block has gone missing. Can they come in and have a look around? And they say yeah. They stick to their story. Savanna was there. The dress fitting took place, and then she left. So police can't see anything out of the ordinary, and they leave. This isn't good enough for her family. And by 9 o'clock that night, with 1 million calls to her phone and numerous calls to family and to friends, there is still no sign of her. They call police again. Another team of police, different police officers from the ones before, they arrive. They're given the story, and again, police go back up to apartment 5. But this time, they're just a little bit more thorough in their search. They look round, but they still find nothing. So the night closes in, and she's not home. The Sunday morning comes, and her family are beside themselves by now. Police are called for a 3rd time. Quite right, I'd have been fucking harassing the police to fuck, getting them there every minute. This time a detective and an officer arrive. It's gone up a gear is what I'm trying to say. Like, I don't know what the term is. If it's, you wouldn't just say general police, but you know what I mean. You know what I'm trying to say. This time they're actually sending a detective because it's now escalating up from this 22-year-old who's pregnant hasn't been seen for a couple of hours, to now we're into the next day and she's still not been seen. So the detective, he asks to do a proper search of the family home and the property upstairs. They search all the areas around the property, the bins, the stairwells, the backyard area, but nothing. Not one thing can be found. Now the police decide to involve dogs to try and find Savanna, and again, nothing is turned up. By now the community around the area are also out looking in large groups. I simultaneously love that, and I also hate when I see the footage of it on TV at the same time. You know the footage when you see like locals out walking through public parks and desolate areas. It just brings like there's a lovely thing in it where you go, oh, it's so lovely community spirit that everyone is out trying to help find this missing person or this missing child or whoever, but at the same time it brings a bit of sadness. I think it just brings a bit of reality to the situation. So the surrounding areas are being searched. Police have pretty much ruled out apartment 5 because they can't find anything. And so now other theories are being looked into. Is it possible Savanna freaked out? Is it possible the pregnancy was too much and she decided she wanted to go elsewhere, give birth to the baby and possibly give it away for adoption? Friends, family and her boyfriend, they say no way. She was really looking forward to starting a family life. She was excited about being a mother. Is it possible Savanna was involved with anyone who had links to a criminal life and that she could have been drawn into something? No, say her family, she had good friends. Is it possible that her working life as a nursing assistant had led her to perhaps try and make some extra money selling prescription drugs on the side to raise money, and it had gotten out of control? No, say those around her. And those who worked with her, they say Savanna was straight up and she was not involved in anything criminal. So where the fuck is she? What is going on? So now the search includes air searches, water searches, and more dogs. So the police get a little bit of shit here. And I don't know if I think it's right that they do. Out of frustration and fear and panic, people in the town and Savanna's family and a lot of people who live in Fargo will say they're not doing enough. They've messed this case up because they didn't move quickly enough to look for her. I don't know. I mean, I think in a way that they did move quite quickly, and I think what happens next proves that they were really invested in her disappearance. The detective from earlier on, who had searched the upstairs apartment 5, had a niggling feeling that something in the property, it wasn't right. You know that kind of feeling, and I've said it before when I've been telling you stories. It's just your instinct talking to you. It's just your instinct telling you something isn't right, and you need to listen to it. And I think if you're a detective, and if you're anyone who works in law, in any kind of criminal activity, you have to listen to that instinct. They're usually correct. What happens next is going to throw this whole entire search and this story on its head. The detective goes back to apartment 5 and asks to search just one more time. Brooke And William, they say he's welcome to. He goes in, and there's now something very different in the picture. An addition to Brooke and William's home. And the addition is a newborn baby. So they have in their possession a healthy, happy female baby. Concern levels are through the roof at this point. Now you can imagine what the police and her family are thinking. So police act fast and both Brooke and William are arrested with conspiracy to kidnap. Some people felt this was quite an odd thing to be arrested with at first, but the reason is, although they have this baby at home, they don't know yet if this is Savanna's child. So they can't actually say that they've kidnapped Savanna. They can't say that because they don't actually know yet the DNA of the baby. So the media and the investigation focuses in on both Brooke and William. So what do we learn about them during that investigation? Well, this. Between them, from a variety of different relationships, they have 9 different children, all varying ages. Brooke had previously been in trouble with police for some violent acts, including threatening one of her kids with a hammer. Great. William, he had also had his fair share of issues with the law, including a child abuse charge when one of his young kids, who I think was aged 3, was brought to the hospital with bruises all over his body. Now these were the separate lives of Brooke and William. This was before they became a couple and moved into apartment 5. Since their time of living upstairs from the Greywind family, police had been out once when Brooke called the police because William had attacked her and thrown her into the bath. Again, this was a while ago, and for a long time the two of them had just lived in that apartment. So if you're finding this story already a bit horrific and a bit insane, allow me to warn you, it's going to get worse. I'm going to describe some things you may need to steel yourself for. Brooke talks to police and she says that she had invited Savanna upstairs at a previous point. Before the Saturday, she had lured her in with the dressmaking story in order to inform Savanna that it was possible to induce your own labour. Brooke offered to show her how to do this. She said I could show her how to make her waters break and give birth. Why in the hell would anyone want to do that? B, why in the hell would Savanna want to do that? I mean, what? Like, just what? Like, what even is that? Brooke said, I told her it was possible, and 2 days later on that Saturday afternoon, she returned with her newborn and she gave it to me. Bollocks. Nonsense. What is she even talking about? Her family on that day had seen her just before she went upstairs for the fake dress fitting, and she was still very much pregnant. Anyway, that's Brooke's bollocks story. What does William have to say about the day? Well, it's a little bit different. He says that he came home on the Saturday afternoon and that Brooke was cleaning up blood in the house. He says that Brooke then held up a newborn baby and said these words: "This is our baby, This is our family. Ooh, an actual shiver just went down my spine at those words. Ooh. Now they're sticking to their two separate stories, and they continue to deny that they know anything about the whereabouts of Savanna, but the police are just not buying it at all. This is what troubles police, and I guess it troubles kind of everyone who's now invested in this story, and that is a lot of people because the story has grown arms and legs and become really big. Police had searched that apartment 3 times in one weekend and found nothing. They'd set surveillance on the apartment, and there was no sign of a baby in any of this. So the questions were, well, were Brooke or William ever seen buying any baby supplies? No. Police begin to dig in to Brooke's story, and she begins to crack. She changes her story. She says she wanted that baby that Savanna was carrying, and on that Saturday afternoon, she took that baby as her own. Grim. So the baby is being cared for at the local hospital, and the search for Savanna Greywind continues. A discovery is about to be made. Savanna's body is discovered in a nearby river, wrapped in plastic, and her face had been wrapped in duct tape. This is now 1 week on from her going missing. Both Brooke and William, they have a bail set at $2 million. And Brooke has the cheek, the absolute fucking cheek, I can't believe this, to say that's not a reasonable level of bail. No ordinary person can afford that. Not reasonable. Seriously, not reasonable. There's a baby in your home which you did not give birth to. There's a dead body in a river, and your bail isn't reasonable? Yeah, sure, whatever. Now, you might be having the same issues I am. How did police search the property 3 times and not see a single clue? It's really confusing. William says the baby was there by the Saturday afternoon, but then so were the police. So where was this baby being hidden? It's just not making any sense. So in amongst all of this, the day of Savanna's funeral arrives, and it's a really busy funeral. People come out in their hundreds to support the family. Not long after the funeral, the first pictures of the beautiful baby girl start to appear in the newspaper. And oh, she is so gorgeous. She's so beautiful. And by now, all the DNA tests are done, and it's proven that the baby found in apartment 5 is 100% the child of Savanna and Ashton. I mean, given the fact that this baby was born early, there's no complications. Happy and healthy. Legal custody of the girl, who they name Hazley Joe, was handed over to the child's father, Ashton, with the grandparents being heavily involved. There was no kind of difficulty there. They agreed that they would just raise Hazley Joe as a family member, but that Ashton would be the main carer, and that the grandparents would be a massive part of that experience. So the horrific questions that need to be answered by police, and people now are curious to want to know what happened on that day in the apartment. How was that baby born? The information at first gets locked down All that's told to the press is that the death of Savanna was violent. Neighbours come forward and they say that on that afternoon, they heard shouting, they heard banging, they heard running water, but they just assumed it was a fight going on in apartment 5 between the couple who lived there. Now, as I said, the charges against both Brooke and William are conspiracy to murder and conspiracy to kidnap. They're way less severe, obviously, than an actual murder charge. There's no doubt in any way here that these two are guilty. But it's getting messy because who is responsible here? Is it Brooke? Is it William? Is it both of them? Were there other people involved? If the police were searching this property and they found no baby, where were they hiding it? Were they using someone else to hide the baby? Or did they put the baby somewhere? Also this question. Did they get help to remove the baby from Savanna before her death? Oh God, you can only imagine what Savanna's family are going through at this point. I think it's a horrible place to be here because it's human curiosity to want to know what happened in that afternoon on the flat, and at the same time to feel a bit scared about what you're going to learn. And I can understand if you don't want to proceed. I won't judge you. I promise. Let's talk about what came out after Brooke had been arrested about her life. Brooke had lived a part of her life in Australia and a part of her life in the USA. She was American, but she had gone and lived in Australia for a good few years. Now, as I said earlier on, she'd given birth to lots of children, but she had no contact with them. She would try to sometimes come back into their lives, but these attempts were always unsuccessful. 2 years before what happened in apartment 5, Brooke had suffered a miscarriage and was told she would never be able to conceive again. She would then be reported to start doing incredibly odd things, like she'd be in a restaurant and she'd go over to a table where there was a baby and she would just stare at the baby intensely and say the words, "That's what I want." And obviously that would freak the people who were sitting at the table. So they would get up and they would leave. But there were lots of reports. Once her face was in the press, people kept going, "Oh yeah, that's her. I remember her from a restaurant and she was really creepy." Or I was in a shop and she came over to me and she wouldn't stop staring at my baby. And so Brooke is here. She's living in apartment 5. She's in this community. She sees Savanna, and a dark and dangerous plan begins to form in her mind. She eventually talks about that Saturday afternoon. It's grim. I'll try and keep it as listener friendly as possible. When Savanna goes into the apartment, Brooke lures her with the dressmaking story. And when Savanna is least expecting it, Brooke gives her a blow to the head which knocks her out. Once unconscious but still alive, Brooke begins to cut the baby from Savanna's body. The baby comes out alive, but Savanna bleeds to death right there in the house. Brooke places duct tape over her face, wraps her body in plastic, and then puts it in a garbage bag. This is where William says he came home and had to help put the garbage bags in the river and help clean the house of blood. Police would be arriving shortly for their first visit to check on Savanna. They must have really cleaned that house for police to not notice anything. And again, where was the baby? Where were they hiding that baby? Or actually, was I wrong earlier when I said that police had done a really good job. Maybe they didn't do a good job. Maybe they glanced around that apartment, didn't really think anything, and left. Maybe that baby was there all the time. You have to stop and ask yourself here, how stupid are these two? I mean, did they think they would get away with this? Seriously, did they think they would ever be able to pull this off? So now they're both charged, but pleading not guilty. Both kind of refusing to talk, but it's about to change. A journalist is trying to get in touch with Brooke in prison. This is like quite often what journalists will do, is they will, they'll write to someone in prison trying to get the scoop really for their newspaper or their TV show or whatever, and they'll consistently bombard them with letters, and actually Brooke writes back. So some of the things that you heard me say in the beginning are the things that actually Brooke wrote back in response. She writes back to say how sorry she is, how much she wants to apologise to the family. All the while she never says in the letter, I'm guilty. But then the letter is published and she's about to change her plea. She changes her plea to guilty. She says, I'm willing to go to court and plead guilty. I'm so ashamed. I'll just remind you of what she said in that letter. I have received your letter dated 12th December and I thank you for reaching out to me. I understand that you're interested in hearing my story, but with all due respect, that's where you and I disagree. I do not feel that in any way this is my story. I don't think I'm entitled to be heard in any manner. My actions devastated a family and shocked a community. There's a possibility that I may be called to testify, and I don't want to jeopardise the case. Brooke's hearing arrives and she is sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Ashton brings baby Hasley Joe to the courtroom to watch the proceedings. Oh, and the photos are just horrible. He's crying his heart out with the young baby in his arms. 2 weeks later, William is also given the same sentence. Life in prison for the murder of Savanna without the possibility of parole. Time passes and the family begin to try and heal their lives. The baby begins to grow up, grow stronger, and all the while people are trying to give the family money. There's GoFundMe pages, and they keep refusing. They don't want people's money. Eventually Ashton is, he's living alone with the baby and he's really struggling on his own financially, and he sets up a page for donations for him and for the baby. As for Brooke and William, well, they're not faring so well in prison. Both have been placed into solitary confinement for their own safety. Fargo police never admitted that on those visits to apartment 5, they did miss some vital clues. That was never admitted. And I think the fact that one detective in that police crew was the one who listened to his instinct, who listened to the niggling feelings and went back, I think that makes up for what they may have missed in the beginning. And so the questions of why didn't they see that there was a baby there, and why didn't they spot blood, those all just kind of disappeared because that one detective went back to find them with a newborn baby. Brooke's sister said in a recent interview, her sister is in prison and she looks like she has had the soul sucked from her eyes. And so ends the story of Apartment 5. Okay, well, I mean, I'd like to say I hope you enjoyed it. I don't really think enjoy is the right word, and I hope it's not. I hope it's not affected you too much. I find this one tough, but you know, if we're going to talk true crime, sometimes the journey is going to be rough. It's going to be tough. Yeah, this was a not very pleasant story to tell, but I think an important one to tell. I'll just say what happened to me in the middle of this recording of this particularly difficult episode. I usually just start telling the story and I sit down and I tell it in one, and then at the end I sit back and I take out any big gaps I might have put in it, or anything that I've said that's not right or whatever. So that's fine. I never really look at the time of it. Occasionally what I do is I look at the time and I think, have I been talking for 3 hours, 5 hours, a week? I have not a clue. Anyway, so I happened to look at the time, but also above it is the actual real time, and I realised that it was like 5 to 9 and the shop across the road from me closes at 9 o'clock, and I thought, fuck, I need to get to the shop because I've got a couple of things I need to buy. So I was like, so I ran downstairs, but paused the recording, ran downstairs, got my welly boots on, went across to the shop, and I got what I needed to, came back out, and as I came back out, like 3 teenage boys who must have been about 14 years old came towards me and said, "Oh, mister, do you want to get into the shop and buy us some drink?" So if you don't speak 14-year-old Scottish Glaswegian boy, that was, would you go into the shop and buy us some alcohol? To which I said, no. Right, because they're like 14 years old. So anyway, I start heading back into the house with the stuff I've just bought, and they start shouting at me, "How no, you fucking dick? You're a fucking prick." I was like, oh, this is what's going on here? Then they just started chucking snowballs at my bloody window. I think they're just trying to wind Alfie up. I think they're just trying to be annoying. But I'm like, go away. Like, do you know what I mean? 14-year-old boys, like, I'm going to go and buy you alcohol in a shop. Shut up. Anyway, so that's one of the things that happened to me during this story. But I suppose it was quite a nice break for me. Maybe not for you because you didn't hear that bit of it until the end. But it was quite a nice break for me because I was finding the story of Savanna quite tough. Anyway, I'm going to stop babbling on. So, you know what I'm going to say. Twitter, Instagram, the Facebook group. It is growing at such a rate. The amount of people who are joining the group and posting and participating and building this bloody beautiful community of people. I've never seen such support, such loveliness. People are so nice to each other. I put up a thing yesterday just to kind of go, what skills have we got here? Just because I knew there would be a range of things. I just thought there'd be something interesting. Whoa, what a talented bunch of people. And for every person who put their thing up going, I can do this, I can knit, I can bake, I can sing, I can do this, whatever. None of it was boastful, but also people were just so supportive of each other. So yeah, get on the Facebook group. It's bloody brilliant. If you want to support the podcast financially, I know times are tough for everyone, there is Patreon. You can find me there, and any donation is welcome. Remember, you'll be getting a short stories midweek episode every week from now on. If you know a great story, an extraordinary story, get in touch. Okay? Goodbye.
Do you get mad when listening to true crime? Well, so do I. If you want a weekly true crime podcast that says what you're thinking, then grab a beer and pull up a deck chair. This is Cambo from True Crime Island, another true crime podcast, and maintain the rage with me. Visit truecrimeisland.com where you can download or stream each episode, plus there's links to iTunes and social media. And as I always say, don't forget to delete your browser history. This is True Crime Island.
It didn't affect me really one way or the other. would imagine from the look on his face, let's get it on. Let's do it. Let's get it over. Let's get it on. Let's do it. Let's get it over.